Good morning and welcome to Math 105, where we are working on another Excel lab. This one is called either your frequency lab or the distribution of data and charts. So what we are going to do first is make sure you have this data analysis tool pack downloaded on your Excel sheet. So first check to see if it is installed by going to data, and then over on the right it says data analysis. So right over here, you want to go to data, and I'll expand this just a little bit so you can see. And then we are looking for this one, data analysis. Now there are two out there. They look kind of similar. One that shows up with like a little spyglass. That's not the one we want. We want this one so that when you click it, oh, I guess I need to highlight maybe. Oh, there we go. When you click it, it'll pull up with this. This is what we're looking for. So cancel that out. Okay, so depending on if you don't have it, that's okay. If you are a Mac user, you're going to load the tool pack in Excel. So click the tool menu, which is up here. So when you're in the Excel sheet here, you're going to go up here to tools, and then go to Excel add-ons, and then you can click, I needed both. You just definitely need this analysis tool pack. If you don't have it here, you can click browse. Actually, no, not for Mac users. You don't have to do browse, but then you can click OK, and it should be already there. Yeah, you can click browse to locate it, but usually it's right there for you. And then you'll have it right there. Now Window users, you're gonna go to the File tab, which unfortunately I can only do this on two computers, and I'm at home today with my Mac. So on your just regular computers, when you go over to the home button, there should be like a File button. So you're gonna click that, and you're gonna go all the way down until you see the options one. And then you're gonna click the add in category. And then you're gonna go in the manage box and select the Excel add-ins and then click go. And then you're gonna look for the one that says analysis tool pack. There's a couple out there. I think there's two types of those tool packs. Just make sure you're clicking the one that says analysis tool pack. You can click both if you want to. It's not going to make a difference. It'll just make sure that it comes up, and then click OK when you're done, and it should already be downloaded there. Again, please read the directions. Be curious. If I am not responding right away, I need you guys to be going on to Google and just maybe watching a video on how they do it. Oh, we are now on to your lab. So we're going to be creating a title page, so make sure you label it. This one can be either called representing data by distribution charts, or it can be labeled as your frequency lab, whatever you would like to call it. Just make sure you have your name, date, and course. Boxes around it. You can put pictures. I had a student. I'll have to show you at some point. His just got better and better. He made it so that it looked like a waterfall down here, just with using different colors and shading, and he really went above and beyond. So definitely try to bring some life and character into these labs. So now let's look at problem 1. So I already put in our data here, so you can pause and put in your data as well. And I'm going to shorten this up a little bit. So it says the goal of this lab is to create a frequency distribution from data, and let's look at the results graphically. So if we're on problem 1, it says in this problem, you'll make a frequency distribution and present the distribution in graphical forms. So in cell A3, enter the word quiz scores. Right here, we're going to write quiz scores. And in cell A4 to A33, we're going to be entering in this data, and this is 30 scores on a 10-point quiz. Double check that all of your data is correct so that you're not getting points off for wrong information. So it says in a cell B3, enter the following range of scores. Now, because it's going to be cut off, we're going to either manually adjust or you can double click and it'll do it for you. So range of scores means exactly that. What are the ranges that you can get on your quiz score, on a 10-point quiz score? They said the possible scores are 1 to 10 respectively. The range scores refers to as the bin, which identifies the value into which the data will be sorted. So you're going to be hearing me use the word bin quite frequently. It's just a range of data that it has now been sorted into. So your range of scores, we said, are the values between 1 and 10. Again, let's try to practice that drag feature. So once you enter in a few values, 1, 2, 3, we can then highlight and then wait for that T to show up, the black one, and then you can scroll down until we hit 10. Now, I might want to consider orienting some things, making it look a little professional before we move on. So I like centering things. I like making things in Times New Roman and putting things in bold. So something that looks like this. Now, what we're going to do, of course, we can actually do it by hand and sort all of these quiz scores into a certain range. But why do that when we can have Excel do it for us? So to sort the data into bins or in your range of scores, the histogram tool from the Excel ribbon. So we're going to go and click your data up here. And now that we have had your data analysis tool pack installed, we're going to click it. Oh, actually, yeah, we're going to click it. So sorry. We're going to click the histogram feature. So there's a whole lot that we can do for it. And I'm hoping that your statistics class, if you move on to it, does some sort of this feature because it is very helpful. We're going to click OK. And then it says input range. So our input range is going to be your quiz scores. So from A4 to A33, we can drag and highlight, or you can type it in as you see it to the right-hand side. Now your bin range, right? This is the selection. So we want to put all of these scores into one of these categories. So that's what it means by bin range. Your input is always your data. Your bin is always what we want to sort it into. So again, we can just highlight what we want or we can type it in. Now we're going to be putting our output range. We're going to change it so that it's an output range. We don't need a new worksheet or workbook. We're instead going to enter it into, it says D3. So whether you type D3 or you select it here, that's totally okay. When you're ready, you can hit OK. So notice that it's putting it into the sort for you. Now I like to center it right away so I don't forget. Make it look nice and neat. Now, what it has done is that it's taking this bin. Again, your bin is your range of scores, and your frequency is the frequency of each score. So it has sorted it for us. We don't need to do it, which is the really nice thing is that it just pulls it up for us. Now you don't need this title. This is just for me to you to recognize what this actually means. So it says, let's see. Now let's insert a column graph. So add the appropriate titles and axis. So we are going to select this. Now it's super key that we're not selecting this more option. You can also just select your frequency as well. Shouldn't matter. But again, notice that I'm not selecting the more. When you select the more, it does come up with some sort of an error. If you didn't want to include the title to it, that's okay. You can also select here. There's a number of different ranges that you can select. So we can go to a recommended chart. We can do this column chart, or keep in mind the last time we did this, sometimes it might be hard to find. So you can kind of click, let's see, where did I click the last time? I was on my desktop, so my Mac doesn't always have it. So I'm going to go to my recommended chart, and it pulls up right here with a column chart. Now we want to make sure that we are creating a good title so that if we're just given this graph, either on a test, on a homework, on an assessment, on any sort of a report, that it brings meaning to your problem. So if I just gave you this chart, do we know what 1 through 10 means, or 0 through 8? No. So we have to bring some light. So what was this problem discussing, right? So create a descriptive title. So create a title name that brings content to this chart. Now we also need to add more chart elements by creating your axis title. So again, what do the values from 0 to 8 represent? Create a meaningful title. And here, let me zoom in for a moment. I want to get that out of there. There you go. You can see a little bit better. And one more time. Oh. This is why I like my desktop a little bit better. Create a meaningful title. Okay, so once you have your titles that bring context to this problem or to this graph, we're now going to practice bringing this column chart into a histogram. So we're going to click kind of out, and I think we've done this from our previous lab already, but we're going to click out, and then we're going to double click on your columns. And notice that how when I do that, I want all of these columns highlighted. Now, if you've done it and you only clicked on it and it had only one of these columns selected, it's not going to work, so try it again. We're going to get this gap width going all the way to 0. And again, just like we did in our last one, perhaps we change the color. It's hard to tell when it's super dark like this, so lighten up the color. Make sure your border is nice and solid. You can thicken it up with the width if you want to. You can also change the color if you'd like. You can have fun with it. Actually, I might change that to black. Just have fun with it, right? These are meant to be lively. All right, so if we click out, we can now see that we have your histogram all having no gap with it, and then that's all we have to do for this chart. All right. Let's see, changing. Okay, so now for our question. It says, in a text box, create your own problem on how to determine from the table the percent of scores that are at least or at most X. For example, a score that is at most 2. So we are going to insert, and I don't know how to get this thing out of here. Frustrating. Insert a text box. So A, create your own problem. Let's see, to find the percent are at least / at most X. So for example, now you are not allowed to use my example as your example. So for example, we said a score is at most 3. So the question being, what is the percent of scores that are at most 2? So for mine, and you have to walk me through it when you go to answer. So I'll put that here, walk us through how you get your answer. Right, college level sentences bring as much as you can to the table. So if I am doing at most 2, so they scored at most 2, I'm going to be looking either here, or I can look on my chart as well. And if I wanted to look on my chart, I can bring some chart elements. Come on. I can bring some chart elements by putting some let's see, bringing some life to it. So these being the values or the frequency in which these scores have happened. So you can use this as well. So if I'm using my chart though, a score that is at most 2, right? So a score that's at most 2. So these are the frequency of each score, and these being the range of scores. So at most 2, we're starting here at most 2. So I'm going to add my score, my one frequency score of 2, and then again, I'm going to add it to those who scored a 1 at 2. Okay, so I will add, so at most 2 means I will add the scores of those who have made a 2 or a 1. So those who scored a 2 are 1, and those who scored a 1 were 2 students. All right, something like this. We will add, goodness, add 1 plus 2, which equals 3, to get the percent of those who scored at most a 2. We will then divide the 3 students by the total of 30 students. 3 out of 30 equals 1 out of 10, or 10%. So something like that. Again, you cannot use as at most 2. Bring your own, have fun with it. All right, that is problem 1. Let's move on to problem 2. Save your work as you're going. All right, if not a whole lot of categories are involved, we're going to also be looking at a pie chart. Sometimes instead of a column graph, pie charts can be also pretty useful and easy to read, depending on your data. So in problem 2, we're talking about the distribution of sales in dollars for a week for XYZ company are as follows. So we're following that template. It says problem 2, sales amount, or you can abbreviate that. So we have 0 to 999, 1,000 to 1,000, 2,000 to 3,000 to 3, and I want to change that. There we go. Now, previously, right, we had to use that histogram feature to sort it all into a range. In this case, that was a range of scores. Now, we actually can bypass that because they have already sorted out these values into, they've already sorted the sales, right? So we don't have to do that. So the number of sales, we have 2 in this first range, and then 7 in the next, 14, and again 7. So again, before I move on, I want to make it look professional. Times New Roman. I like putting things in bold, that sort of stuff. Okay. So unlike in problem 1 where we needed to create bins or the range of scores, this problem we had already taken the data and sorted it into the bins, which is our sales amount. So from here, let's select your data and insert a column graph, add titles, graph, everything that we need to make it into a histogram. So we can, in fact, highlight this whole thing to kind of give us an edge on perhaps what our data is going to represent. We're going to enter in a column graph. And again, it says number of sales. I think we can do better as far as a title goes. Create a better title. Bring lots of context. Again, reread perhaps the line that we talked about in example 2 or problem 2. Let's add some more titles to it. Okay, create your own title, make it look really good. Um, Next, we're going to make it into a histogram. So we're going to click out and then we're going to double click and notice that they're all highlighted. We're going to get that gap width to 0. We're going to change some of your colors. Again, just something a little lighter. You can still have fun with it, especially if you're online. You do not need to print these off. So like go crazy. Just make sure I can read it. Okay, so that looks good to me. You can have that here again if you wanted to. You can put some label into it. Perhaps I want to put these values on the inside to show me a little bit more. Just have fun with it. You can do some more stuff on here. So this is with your column graph, your histogram. Not a bad way to read this data. It's actually very clear and concise. But we can also try to enter in a pie graph. So again, pie graphs are really good, or pie charts are really good when you don't have a whole lot of data to mess around with. And we're going to see that look. So highlight one more time. And notice that it actually already popped up with a pie graph. This one, a clustered bar, it's just literally this bar, but flipped on its side. So we can select that. Again, let's change some of these titles. Create title. It can be the same one from the title above. You do want to enter in some sort of a legend. So if this did not pop up, that is something that you can have right here. You can change it. Right now, mine is on the bottom. You can change the location. You can do more options. One thing I do want to do is get these these labels on the inside to pop up, kind of like we did previously on your other graph. You might want to center it. On the inside or put it on the outside. I like to put it on the outside because sometimes for those who print these off and didn't change their colors, it can get, I can't see it all the time. So definitely look into that or keep that in mind. Now, what we also want to do, I haven't done this on my Mac in quite a bit, so I'm going to try and get these into a percentage. Quick layout. I'm sure you can do that here as well. I'm trying to figure out what. Let's see. I know you can get percentage to come up. Maybe if I format it. No. Text options. Let's see. Let's glow. Oh, there we go. So, and I don't want it just for one. I'm going to select that whole thing. So I'll kind of go back. I'm sure you can find an easier way to do it up here. But for some Mac users or some other users, we're just going to flesh this out. So I'm going to double click on my numbers, let this pop up, and I'm going to go over to make sure this column chart is here. And I'm just going to make sure that these are now percentages are showing up. If I didn't want my values, I can get rid of my values. I actually don't mind them showing up. Just make sure though, it is not a period. So this is not 2.7%. It's 2 comma, 2 being the frequency, and then 7% being how much of it is in this category. Okay, so we got that down. Now we are going to insert a text box and answer the following question. It says determine the percent of sales under $2,000. Describe how you obtained your answer. There you go. So again, make sure you're bringing meaning to these graphs, and you can look at the major differences between these two. Other than being like, oh, this is a column, these are squares and or rectangles in a circle. This one you can do more with as far as percentages, because this being a whole circle like 100%, that sort of idea. And just has like a better layout to it. Again, not bad for either one. You would not, you mean you could do it on this one. It's not that much data. It wouldn't look as good because of your frequencies and because you have so many bins. So just err on the side of caution. So let's do problem 3. Again, you'll notice that I already put my data in here. You're going to have time to do that. There's just a lot, so make sure you're entering them in carefully. So it says in problem 3, we have unemployment rate, that's key, throughout the following years, and we're going to be analyzing them. So starting with the new sheet, enter in the following. So we have right here, problem 3, we have unemployment rates. If you wanted to abbreviate that, that's fine. I would like everything to be centered, as you guys know me. I'm going to make sure these two are in bold. Okay. So we have all of that listed. In B3, we're going to label as bin. So again, bin just being a sort of your ranges. So we'll be constructing the bin where we sort data as seen in problem 2, where we can have the range fitting into the categories. Our bins are going to increase by 0.5. And if our values start at 4, then our first bin is going to be 4.5. So this means we have sorted the values from 4 all the way to 4.5 in this category. In B5, we should then have 5. Continue on until you get to 10. Okay, so right here we have bin. We can put that in bold. So we have 4, let's see, do I want to put this as, no, we'll just do 4.5 as they've told us. We're going to be increasing starting by halves. So then our next one will be 5, and then your next one will be 5.5. Now we can keep going, but we can highlight and then put these or drag these all the way down until they said until you get to 10. So we are going to put all of these ranges into these categories. Again, this one being from your from your 4.0 all the way to 4.5. And then this would be from 5, 4.5, so not including 4.5, just values that are close to it, all the way to 5 and so forth. So we're going to put all of these into a specific range. So then it says, as we did in problem 1, use the data analysis toolpack to create a frequency distribution. Be sure that all the data is selected in your input. Okay, so we are going to insert, we're going to go to data analysis toolpack, again, that histogram. So our range here, your input range, again, is just all of your data found in A. Now, it was the same amount, so we don't have to change this one. However, notice that when you go to your bin range, not all of it is selected, so we can reselect your whole range, or you could have changed the very last one to have 15. We will keep your output range in D3. That's totally okay. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Again, I'm going to center these, make them look kind of nice. There you go. Again, this bin is just categorizing the unemployment rate. So this bin is just categorizing the unemployment rate. You do not need to write this part. This is just for me to you on how to read this bin. The frequency, of course, is the frequency of how many are going in this category. Then it says, before we move to creating a histogram, let's insert the midpoints of your bins in C4. So we want to be labeling this as your midpoint. Oops, midpoints. Now we're going to be using your midpoints, but we can certainly actually use a leftmost point, a rightmost point, or your center point of your graphs. Now what your midpoint does is, because that there is a wide range between 4.0 and 4.5, we can either use 4 or 4.5 as your like starting place. However, you could also use your midpoint, the midpoint value between 4 and 4.5. Now, what does that what is the middle value of 4 and 4.5? Well, that would be 4.25, right? So what we're going to be doing is, on your histogram, I don't want these values to show up. Instead, I'm going to take the middle range of these values, because sometimes it can be more accurate, not always, but it's just based on your context of the problem. They're just asking us for the midpoint in this case. So we're using your midpoint from here. We're going to do it again. Again, this 5 representing the middle value between 4.5 and 5, which is 4.75. Now you can see if you can drag and go. Let's see, do I say anything? Midpoint bins, find the midpoints between 4 and 5, continue with the bins. Okay. So we're just going to drag and drop, and you'll notice that as we're going through, it is going to follow us throughout. Now, when we stop, we can stop right here. Again, this is just the middle value between 9.5 and 10. We do not need to continue on to this value because we don't have anything, we don't have your unemployment rates go past 10 in this case. So let's create your histogram. So select the frequency and the midpoints. So in this case, we are gonna, instead of just using your bins, we wanna be using something a little bit more specific. So we're gonna highlight all of this, and then you're gonna hold, I wanna say on your desktop, you're gonna hold the Shift key, and then you're gonna highlight the next range. For us, we're gonna hold down Command if you have a, a Mac? And then you can select another value of data. So now we're going to insert. We're going to put in a column graph. Now, if done correctly, you'll have your midpoints here. Put that right there. And then you'll have your frequencies right here. Again, change your chart title. I'll keep doing that. Create a meaningful title. Add some of your other stuff. Create meaningful titles here. Again, don't just label bin. Tell me, or midpoint bins, tell me why or what these actually mean. The midpoint of what, right? The frequency of what. Let's make sure that this is now a histogram. So we're going to double click, gap width 0, and then you're just going to make those changes however you normally do. Now this one does not come with a question. I just didn't think we really needed one for this section. But I believe that is it. Yeah, and you can, as best you can, read this chart. You can add some more elements to it, putting that those values in here. So to the unemployment rate for those falling between 4 and 4.5, or the middle value of 4.25 is 2, right? That sort of thing. Or the highest unemployment rate is between the values of 5.5 and 6, or with a midpoint of 5.75. So something like that. You can read it.